At best, the alien abduction phenomenon is a terrifying, traumatic experience. At its worst, well, we think they sometimes take people and don't put them back.
I lost my mother and brother to this trauma. He murdered her, then killed himself.
These women are being used as human incubators, with all their children stolen away into the night.
A 6-foot-tall entity of blue-white light paralyzed me, then bent down and said into my ear, "Hi, Steve." It knew my name.
We hear gruesome stories of experiments and dissections. Imagine dying on a metal table while paralyzed, surrounded by alien faces. It's a real horror story. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our new show on Gnostic TV, Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. We're your hosts, Leslie and Stephen Shaw.
Hello.
Hi. Every week on the show, we're going to start by sharing one of our personal experiences right before we introduce our terrific guest for the evening. And tonight's guest is Michael Kopf. You are really in for a treat here. So tell us, Stephen, about your experience where you saw the gnomes.
Yes, of course. When I was 8 years old, I just started sleeping in the top of a bunk bed. My brother Philip was 2 years old on the bottom. So I was awakened one night by just this noise, and I turned over in my bunk bed and I saw 4 or 5 what I call little garden gnomes that were sneaking into the room from the hallway, and they were about a foot to foot and a half tall, and they were brightly dressed, just kind of like what you expect to see from a gnome. And they were like looking around. I was clearing my eyes, and then they noticed I was looking at them, and they kind of stopped and stared at me. And for a couple seconds, we locked eyes, and then I just rolled over on my left side and just said, "Oh, they're not here." So that was kind of strange.
What was their mannerisms like?
Their mannerisms, they were curious, and they were looking around, and they were had the silly hats on. But we did not have a TV set in our room, so this was 1968. So anyway, when my brother, who was 6 years older than me, Philip, 6 years younger, sorry, when he turned 8 years old, he started sleeping in our closet, and he did that for a full 2 years. And I asked Philip, I said, "Philip, why are you sleeping in the closet?" He said, "Well, I'm afraid of little men that come at night." And because I had seen them at the same age, I believed him. And that's just, what can you say when you've seen the same thing?
Yeah, I would believe him too if I had seen it myself.
It was shocking. It was weird. It has stuck with me my whole life. And I'm sure that it stuck with Philip too, even though I talked to him in later years, and he said that he can't really remember much of his early life.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Stephen. And we're going to introduce our wonderful guest for tonight. Michael Kopf is a paranormal investigator and podcaster with tons of experience and insights to share. He is a Reiki master, a reverend, and he is able to channel and astral project. He says he can open and close portals. He had his first bizarre experience at age 2, and he has had 3 near-death experiences in his life. His passions include the study of myths and genealogical research. He is a 5-time UFO witness, and he has traveled extensively, experiencing the paranormal in many other countries. After returning to the U.S., he joined many different paranormal investigation teams and has over 100 investigations under his belt. In 2022, he became the host of Exploring Our Secret Past with Carla Norris. In 2023, he and Carla relaunched a new podcast called The Energy That Surrounds Us, and he became the co-host with Kel Ridley on another show called Paranormal Viz. Earlier this year, he launched a new show, Riding Through the Unknown, and we were guests on this podcast with him. So let us introduce Michael Kopf. Hi, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you for having me, and Stephen. It's a pleasure to talk with you both again.
Nice to see you again.
Yes, we were on Michael's podcast
About 2 weeks ago,
2 weeks ago, I believe. Yes,
roughly.
and can't
Actually,
wait.
last week.
Oh, was it a week ago? Sorry, that
Time flies.
time is running
It
into
does.
each other.
It was so long ago.
And so we have so many experiences that we want to hear all about. But I thought we could start with your the first one at age 2.
Absolutely. So I'll share with you the slightly abridged version so we can get to everything. But what it was is, so at 2 years old, I was living up north in a 2-story home, and it had a basement, so technically 3 stories. And we were doing some work apparently on the 2nd story, and my mom had covered up a vent with a piece of plywood. Well, being that it's wintertime, so I mean, you all remember those embarrassing little outfits that we all wore in the cold in this late 70s, early 80s. And
Oh yeah, I remember those.
The
Yeah.
bunny suit, right?
Yep. So
Christmas spirit, yeah.
I'm wearing that, and I approach a vent opening, and the plywood has been moved. And so I'm looking over the vent opening, and something grabs my arms, and I go in. And so I'm falling down this shaft, and a wire cuts my eyebrow. So I have a little spot where no hair grows on my eyebrow as a reminder. And I hit the concrete basement, and no broken bones, no damaged muscles, no torn ligaments. I was totally fine. And one of the things that I later found out was the entity that pulled me in, I thought I had a conversation with it, and I found out there was a second entity that pulled me away from that one, and I had been pulled out of time by the second entity, and they were asking, are you ready to leave? Do you want to stay? What's going on? And I'm asking them, if I'm going to stay, I need these gifts. I need them to be available at these times so that I can help people. And arranging all this like unfolding that's supposed to happen later in life. And I put back in time, and I don't remember this conversation until a teenager. And I didn't even realize I was pulled in, honestly, until I was in my late 30s, early 40s, when a friend in Greece gave me the 2 pieces of information that I was like, oh, that makes it more interesting. And so I would always tell people, to me, the most interesting thing about that was at 2 years old, mapping out my future, how my gifts are going to be unfolded, and having this conversation with an entity. And
Wow.
one of my guests started laughing and goes, actually, the most incredible thing is you understand that entity. You can communicate with them. And I was like, huh, I didn't even think about that because it just happened.
Do you think it was telepathic communication?
I feel it was.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Yeah.
Because 2-year-olds barely understand
He is a 2-year-old.
English.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, at 2 years old, who sits there and goes, okay, so to help people, this is what I need. And to have that, I knew people who were channels, and they would keep saying to me, oh, you're going to channel. And I'm like, when? How? And I'd try to push it and couldn't. And then finally in my 20s, it unfolded and I did it. And I had one experience where I was at a friend's house and I was doing a channeling session for everyone. And you can change your voice. And so it's hard when you say, oh, your voice was different, that people are like, oh, yeah, that's 100% validation, that you are not you, that you are somebody else bringing this information in. And so
Right.
I was glad to hear a friend came up to me and said, your eyes changed. Like, literally, they were not your eyes while you were channeling. And I was like, that's the validation right there.
Did you did they tell you what color your eyes changed to, or just the intensity, or the
I think it was just the intensity. She just said it was like she could tell they were not my eyes.
a different consciousness then?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Do you always channel the same entity, sort of like a Seth situation, or is it different ones?
For a while I would, and I tried to channel like family or personal level kind of mediumship, and I'd always get surface like stuff, and so I was like, well, this is stuff I already knew, so I don't think I'm channeling this. This is just me being me, so I let it go, and I was just like, yeah, apparently I'm just a galactic channel. And when I started to realize that people were like starting to flock to hear what I was saying and was like, oh, we want to know this, this, and this, I was like, that's not what I signed up for. This isn't what I was wanting. And so I backed off and I kind of, in a way, turned it off because I was like, I'm not a guru. I don't want to be like the person that people are like, oh, he's,
Like,
the authority of these people. And I was like, yeah, that's not me.
like
I'm just me.
yeah, like Daryl Anka. Leslie and I went years ago to. He was a channel for an entity called Bashar, an alien entity, and it was the same thing. His eyes changed and his voice changed
Quite a
too.
lot, yes.
And the interesting thing with him is that he asked all these different questions, and he would never trip over a single word. It was literally like he was channeling. I met him a couple times in a library. He's just like a normal guy, and it was quite humbling in a way to.
I got goose flesh on my arms when he was talking. It was the transformation was quite creepy, really. So how did you get into the practice of Reiki, and how does that work with does it help support your psychic abilities?
So I was introduced to Reiki as a teenager, and the people that taught me the first time, I have, nothing bad about them, and, nothing, but they came by in a circle and were doing symbols, and so it goes, oh, this one's a natural over my head. And so I'm like in my head going, oh, well, if I'm a natural, I don't need to study anymore. I can just do it. I'm not paying for classes anymore then. I already know what's what. And so I feel like that was, maybe the universe just kind of like going, this isn't the right teacher and the right time, because
Yeah.
it was like just the way it all unfolded. And when I was in my late 30s, I went to a metaphysical shop, and the Reiki teacher was there, this guy named Neil, and he's and I started talking, and I said, oh, you do Reiki. I was told I was natural, and I'm curious, how to do your style. And he goes, well, I do sessions on I think it was like Wednesday night, and you can come and attend one. It's my students, working on people, and it just helps them develop their skills. So let's see what you got. And so I was like, all right. And I'm sitting there, and this person starts working on me, and they're like, oh, well, you got this blockage on your left side, which is masculine, I believe, which would mean it's your father, grandfather, or, there's a male energy around you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean left side is masculine, right side's feminine? I was like, where is this? And I started realizing they were channeling while doing the Reiki and getting messages from what's going on. And I was like, this is incredible. So I went to Neil and I was like, I know I've already taken Reiki 1, but can I take it again with you? And he said, yeah, I'll work with you on that. And so I retook Reiki 1, and it was a lot more engaging, and I could feel the energy a lot more. And we did a lot of hands-on. I went to a lot of those sessions of his to practice, and I ended up doing Reiki 2, and I was getting more out of it, and that's where we learned remote healing and everything. And I was like, this is really cool. This is way more than I thought. And then he we were laughing because he goes, well, the next step is Reiki 3. And if you want to throw in an extra little bit, I'll give you the mastery class at the same time. And I was like, ooh, mastery? He goes, yeah, it just means you're a teacher. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, why not?
Bring it on.
Never know if you're going to use it or not, but it's like better to have it in case, so you don't have to go back and relearn everything. So, yeah, that's how I got my Reiki, and I found that it helped me out because I could start to see when working on people. I noticed it was really interesting. So when I would start the session, whether they're sitting or laying on the table I had, I would see all these strands, and I viewed it as like a harp. So I was viewing everybody as a harp. So you have all these meridian lines. I believe those are the ones you call them, that run from top to bottom.
Yeah, channels or meridians, yes.
Yeah. And so I would look at them and I would be like, well, this one looks a little dark, and I would pluck it. And all of a sudden I would see like all the dirt and debris and dust just flutter off it. And I was like, oh, it's got a golden color.
Wow.
And so then I would go to each one and I would start looking at every one of them and going, well, that one's pretty gold. That one's golden. That one's a little bit. And so I would pluck it.
This one needs plucking. This one needs plucking, right? Because it's not as gold, say.
Right. And so I started doing that, and people would start to comment, oh, wow, that felt really good. I could feel the energy and everything. And I was like, I didn't really even start yet, but okay, this is cool. And I will never forget, I had a lady on my table, and I was working with her, and after the session, she was like, you have given me so much relief. I've never had this much relief. And I know somebody who works in the medical field who is in need of help. She's got a condition and nobody will help her. Can I bring her to you? And I'm like, yeah, we'll see what we can do. And so she came over, and she was sitting on my table on the edge, and I knew the problem was in the back because talking with the mom, but for some reason, it's like my energy and everything was telling me, don't work on the back. And I'm like, and I'm trying to fight it going, the problem's in the back. Why are we not going to the back? That's where it is. Let's just work with that. And they're like, look here. And so I look at one of her legs, and it's like I was, seeing like this black mass over everything. It's like I couldn't really see. So I'm like, okay. So I push energy through, and when I know that's an energy of a certain level, I'm usually what I will say to somebody like, what is your healing element? What element do you relate to? And if it's an air sign, and they're like air, I'll pull air, and I'll use that to help with the technique. Well, in this case, I start working on it, and I start cleaning this up, and all of a sudden it's like everything looks great. And I'm at her ankles. The mom, when she's ran her fingers down the spine of her daughter,
Mm-hmm.
she goes and grabs my hand and goes, feel this, and took my hand down the spine. And I said, yeah, that's the spine. She goes, no, you don't understand. This is the first time my daughter's spine has been in a straight line. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What just happened here? And it like blew my mind that I was like, the energy work straightened the back.
You took out the scoliosis?
That's what the mom was thinking. I never claimed it. I just said, hey, I just did the energy work. And she did with it what she needed.
It's not uncommon, especially with acupuncture, where, you'll treat the foot to address a headache, or they'll treat the hand to address back trouble. So these meridians, they move all the way through the body. So
he knows
it's not
that,
unusual,
yes.
of course.
Yeah.
Well,
it's interesting. Energy work, there is an overlap between Tai Chi and acupuncture and Reiki. It's interesting.
Be careful to say I didn't heal the back if it is healed.
Yeah.
I important. Just was a conduit for the energy. What she did with it, that's what did it. So I'm like, yeah. And so on to the near-death experiences. So
yes, please. One of my favorite subjects.
The first one is the one I talk about the most because it's, to me, the most descriptive and the most I have memory of. And what was interesting is, so I am hot-natured by just natural tendencies. And so I'm sharing this because one night I started getting very cold. Like I could feel ice on my bones, cold. And I'm like, this is winter time. This shouldn't be happening. And I don't get cold, so something's wrong. And I start to wonder what's going on. And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I'm like, I need a blanket. And I'm like, this is summertime. Blankets. I had to go dig it out because I was like, yeah, who wears a blanket in the summertime? And I called my mom up because I worked for my parents at the time. And I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to be coming in tomorrow. I'm just forewarning you now. I got a blanket on. I'm feeling cold. Something's wrong. And she goes, just drink some water, go to sleep, see how you're feeling in the morning, and call us. So I'm like, all right. So I start to get up, and I start walking towards my room. Well, when I enter my room, I have a 4-post wooden, real wood bed. And the reason I mention that is because apparently when I entered my room, I blacked out. And I woke up with a mark on my chin that had a little bit of blood on it. And it was very sore. And I was like, I had to have hit my chin on the post of that bed.
Right.
And I'm very lucky it didn't break my chin. But I start to feel like something's going on. And so I rush into my bathroom, and I'll skip the graphic part for this show. But when you hear about like tissue regenerating, how it spits itself out and it explodes out the bad tissue and the new tissue comes in, well, that's what I experienced. It's like everything came out, and then I was like totally fine. And I'm like, what just happened? And I'm like, I clean up the bathroom, and I'm like, no longer cold. I feel totally normal. But I start to notice I was thinking about something that I've never thought about before. And I was thinking about it in a way I had never thought about. So I was like, wait a minute. Something in my thought processes has changed. What happened? And to this day, I have no idea how much time had passed from when I passed out and came to. And I never went to the hospital because, I mean, I was feeling fine. I didn't feel like there was a need to go get checked out because it was like the only thing that was sore was my chin. And I was like, that I hit it on a post. Of course it's going to be sore. So I'm like, don't need to go to the hospital. And I start to realize too that I started almost feeling like, and I know this is going to sound a little strange, but I was feeling like I was in the past, living in the moment right now. Like things that were starting to unfold, I'm like, I've already been through this. So I kind of played it off as having like a bonus level
Or
type
like
of
a
intuition.
like a deja vu effect, kind of almost like you've done it before. Or was it like that, or was it different?
More like, well, you could say deja vu, but it was more deeper than that to me. It was like I was from like say, so at this point, let's say I'm 23. I was feeling like this all happened in the past, so I was feeling like I was maybe 26, 27, back in my body as 23 with all my memories up to where I was when I started. And so I would be like, it was like I was reliving everything. So, like, I would get friends that would call me up, and I'd be like, yeah, I already knew you were going to call. I knew what plans we were going to do. And I never shared that with anyone because it's like, I know that's not normal. And so I'm like, I don't know how to explain it myself. So, not going to mention this part of it. But there would be times like something would happen in the news, and I'd be like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen, and this is why, and it's going to turn out okay. And they'd be like, it turned out okay. And they're like, I don't know how you knew that. I'm like, I don't know either.
A little
I
bit
just, and third one happened, different outcomes happened, and they all happened at different ways. And I started to realize recently, as I was sharing this, I go, when I was 2, I said, these things were going to happen this way and this way. I was like, universe, I'm going to rewrite the script of no more near death experiences to raise awareness or raise my ability levels. We got to do a different way because this is getting out of control and
It sounds
dangerous.
disconcerting to say the least.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, we don't need to nearly kill me to upgrade me anymore. There's got to be a better way.
Well, that's a pretty powerful experience, I must say.
It was, and I know a lot of people question it because I don't have medical records and I don't know, like, if hours had passed or minutes. And they're like, you don't have all the signs of, but you do have some. And I'm like, it's my experience. I believe it was. And so that's what matters to me. If people want to say, oh, that's not a true full near death experience, that's on them. I'm content with knowing what I know. The other thing that I'll mention, because you mentioned it in the introduction, Leslie, was the UFO experiences.
Oh, yes.
I,
We'd like to
I,
hear those.
I love
our
sharing them because, they're personal to me. And again, it's like people, like I decided one time I had actually taken photos of the object that I seen. And so the story on that one was I was at a job where I was working as a fundraiser outside of a storefront for a company. And so it was the end of my shift at like probably 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I was getting ready to break down my little area. And I look up and there's this object just hovering in the sky. And I'm like, I can't hear it over traffic. And I'm like, planes you can hear, whether there's a lot of traffic or not. So I was like, this isn't a plane. And I start putting stuff together and I'm about to go to my car and I look up. It's in the exact same spot.
How would you describe its shape?
It was kind of like a rectangle with a square sticking out the top of it. So it's like it looked like a plane, but it wasn't a plane. As I was driving in the car and I noticed this speck like in the windshield and I was like, I wonder why my windshield has a light spot on it. That's really weird. And I would turn and the light spot was still in the same spot on my windshield. And I was like, wait a minute. And so I run the windshield wipers and sure enough, it's still there. So I'm like, it's not a speck on my windshield. What is this? And so I pull over and I look up and it's still there. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go home. And if you are still in the same spot when I get home, that is 20 minutes away, I will know you're a UFO. Because nothing like a star would not follow.
Right.
And if it's a plane, it's like 99% of the chance not going to be flying over my house. So that'll rule that out. And there was no sound, too. That's like, I've never heard any sound when I witnessed these. And sure enough, I get home and it's like I see it for like a split second and then it disappears. And it was like, I started feeling like, I think it's making sure I got home okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one experience I had, I haven't been able to get validated by a lot of the UFO community. And I'm okay with that. I know what I saw and felt, and it was totally by intuition that it happened. And I was walking outside of my mom's house, and something said, look up. And there's one cloud in the sky. And behind this cloud are little flash bursts of light. Like, if you are a fan of science fiction movies in space, when a laser or something hits a shield, that burst of light that it makes to show the impact? That's what I was seeing a lot of. There were two different colors, like a red and an orange.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing these, and I go, in my mind, I go, this is a battle. And it's near my house. And so I walked inside, And I casually go to my parents and I go, so who wants to see a UFO battle? And of course, my mom jumps up and she's like, what are you talking about? Where? And we go outside and we look up and she sees the same thing I saw. And somebody goes, well, that could be ball lightning. And I was
Oh
like,
no.
when I researched ball lightning, it's one color
And very rare.
and it doesn't burst like several, like all over the place. I mean, it was like
Yeah.
literally, it looked like a battle taking place
Yeah.
in
Doesn't
the
sound like
sky.
ball lightning to me either.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. Of course, it was soundless too, probably, right? No, no, like thunder or anything like that.
No, there was no storm, no thunder, no engine sounds. It's like if I didn't have the intuition to look up, I never would have even known it happened.
You know, there's like one scientist I heard once describing this phenomena, saying, "Oh, that's when clouds they get ice crystals forming on the top, and then the sun hits it just right, and then it causes this flashing." I said, "Okay, yeah, all right." Like trying to explain everything away again, you know, that it's just some natural phenomena, you know. So
They're
Mm.
always saying, "Oh, and that's been debunked." Like
yeah, we hate that.
I know, like the DoD has just come out saying that the Go Fast video has been debunked. And I read the material, and all they've done is prove that it's higher up than it appears. That it's kind of an optical illusion that it's right over the water.
Parallax, yeah.
Yeah, with the parallax, and they've also calculated its speed,
Was
and
a
it's
little
not
different,
it's
yeah.
not going at hypervelocity speed. But they neglected to point out that it's a tic tac that has no visible means of propulsion. There's no wings or propellers or intakes or exhaust. It's still a UFO. It's still something that it hasn't been debunked, but now that when they say these words out into the public go, oh, that's been debunked. And they think that it's not a UFO, or it's been explained away as the what it is has been explained away, which in no way has it been explained to my satisfaction.
Yes.
Certainly.
Right.
And so how about your second UFO experience?
Well, the other thing I was going to say about that was what was interesting is I never saw the crafts. I only saw the impact bursts. So it's like whatever was there. And my first thought in my mind as I'm like watching this is going, please, you're over my house. Don't, if you're going to hit, make sure you destroy. I don't think my insurance will cover you hitting my house and breaking it. So I feel like those were just watching over me, being safe and making sure everything was all right, because inevitably each one of those times I ended up taking a different route. Like I always take alternate routes. It's like I rarely will take the same route to and from. And so it was just interesting to me that I was like, yeah, they not only were watching out above, but probably guided me to take different routes so that I avoided some stuff. And so probably got home faster than I probably should have, which I'm not complaining at those hours.
Of course. Yeah, I've heard this. I've heard similar things like this before. We had a friend whose name was Asmina. She lived at the top of Topanga Canyon with her husband, and she used to work as an air traffic controller. And on several occasions, she'd be driving home, and there would be this green globe or green orb that would literally follow her all the way home, like at a distance, but up in the sky. And I had no reason to not believe her because she was a no-nonsense person.
Yeah.
And so I have heard similar things like this. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about opening portals and closing them. I'd like to understand what you mean by that and how and to where.
So how that came about was we had, growing up, always something like interesting would happen around us. And so my parents and we were talking with a dowsing rod person and was saying, oh, we always have these weird things happen. Like, there's this energy around us that's like watching us, and it's like it feels just bizarre. And every time we start to get ahead or something happens to knock us down. And what's going on? Well, I get a call from my parents, and they go, there's a gentleman coming named Raymond Grace, and he's going to come to the house and he's going to help us out with something. And I said, okay. And so I got the house a little bit cleaned up, and I was like, okay, because you want to make a good impression on someone. And he comes in and he goes, okay, and has this list of things. And so he goes down the list and he's asking his pendulum what's going on. And he goes, so you guys have a hex on you. And I can tell you where the hex comes from. And this is on a level I rarely see, but don't worry, I'll show you how to fix it and get rid of it. So we're like, cool. And so while he's working on us one by one, we take a break, and I walk into the kitchen, and I just stop somewhere, and he walks up next to me and he goes, you can feel that, right? And I said, yeah, there's like some energy here. He goes, yeah, so why don't you close it? I go, what do you mean? He goes, that's a portal. You can close it. And I was like, how do I close it? He goes, you know. And I was like, I do? And
Yeah.
all this, and it's like, he goes, yeah, you have the information in you. You just have to trust yourself. And so I put my hand out and I start to feel it, and I go, well, the energy is flowing this way. And I start to visualize the energy turning the opposite way, and it closed. And I was like, wow. And he goes, yeah, you have in you the ability to open and close portals. And I was like, I had no idea about this.
Who knew?
And so, yeah, and so I was like, wow. And so I then established, like, in my house, in one room, in one corner, I would open up and say, hey, beneficial energies and higher are welcome to come visit and, move on to where you're going to next. Little did I know that would turn my living room into Times Central or Times Square. I was like, all hour stuff going on. I could feel it. And one gentleman goes and says to me, have you ever done EVP work at your house? And I was like, no. He goes, it sounds like you got a lot of spirits there. And I'm like, well, yeah. He goes, but do you want to know who they are? I was like, okay. So he said to me, take your phone, put it in there for like 5 minutes. Just record it. Just use your voice recorder app. Send me the clip and I'll tell you what I find. I'm like, all right. And so I do that. And he goes, you had an Indian chief, a fire chief. You had so many different time period spirits going through there. How do you sleep? And I'm like,
and the super chief, don't forget.
Yeah, it's not in my room, so I'm okay. They're in the middle of the house. I'm on one end, so we're good. We have an understanding. But yeah, and I always will do that now when I get a house. I open up a portal so that spirits that are needing to move from one point to another are welcome to visit and move on as long as they're respectful. And
That's true, right?
I always have guardians at the gate too. When you come out, it's like if you are like, oh, I'm, high energy, I'm, this or that, but in reality, you're not, the guardians will be like, you have two choices. You can either turn and go back from which you came, or we will throw you through the other end, but you are not entering the house. It's like there was like a special tunnel or something that they did to where they would be immediately removed, but everybody else was totally fine. And so I was like, hey, this is cool. And as long as we're respecting each other, I have no problems, having spirits coming through. And every once in a while, I get fairies that come through, and I know it's the fairies because keys will be missing or pieces of paper that I had on one pile would not be there. And I'm like, all right, you little tricksters, put it
They're
back,
playing
please.
tricks on you.
Yep.
Now,
I wanted to ask you. Now, you've had over 100 paranormal investigations under your belt, so obviously we can't talk about all of them. But I was wondering if you would pick a couple of your favorites, maybe, and tell us about them.
Sure. So my first true experience with the paranormal was I was at Old Park Hotel in Ballinger, Texas, and I was in this doll room where it's like they dub it the kids room, and I'm just doing a scan, walking through, and I'm on a live. And all of a suddenly, as I'm finishing the room sweep, my phone just starts going up and messengers just keeps going off and going off. And I'm like, everybody, I'm on a live. Stop messaging me. I can't look at these while I'm doing this. And it's like I had the hardest time of doing lives because I'm so focused on showing myself, and looking and making sure I'm engaging people that I don't pay attention to the chat underneath. And I leave the room and I go up this hallway into another room and I go, okay, guys, I'm going to stop this live because y'all are blowing up my messenger feed. So I'm going to see what's going on. Well, a friend of mine that rarely messages me goes, you need to go back and listen to your live. And I was like, what's up? And she goes, just go back when you're in that room before you leave. Tell me what you hear. And I'm like, huh? Well, I watched the video of me entering the room, doing my thing. And sure enough, when I hit the center of the room before, leaving, this voice comes in of a little girl says, leave me alone.
Whoa.
And then I scan on and leave, and I never heard it. And I was like, I couldn't believe people were hearing this on a live feed. I'm like, how did they hear it and I didn't hear it?
The
I'm in the
electronics
room.
picked it up somehow, I guess, right?
Well, the cool thing about it is, so I trimmed that footage, and well, actually, I post that little clip of the live, and I say, here's an EVP. Well, then a few months later, I listened to the clip again because something says you should listen. And I hear 3 taps on my shoulder when I was overlooking a crib before the girl says, leave me alone. And I said to the people on my team at the time, hey, I just heard 3 taps on my shoulder. I never heard that before. And it was right by my ear. And one of the teammates messaged back, goes, oh, I get 3 taps all the time in that room.
Why is it?
A few months later, a third person looks at this and goes, you need to look at right before you exit the room underneath this tabletop on this little open cabinet area. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And I start to look, and a friend in Temple, her name's Mary Jo, taught me when you take a pen, you like your finger, and if you can outline like a figure, you caught a spirit. And so I'm looking in this area where he told me to look, and I go start to draw a little half circle. Then it divots back, goes down, goes across, goes up, down at an angle, goes over, loops back around, comes up, down a little bit, up. And I look at when it's all done, and I go, okay, I got 3 taps. A girl says, leave me alone. And the outline looks like a little kid holding his knees, hiding. And I'm like, oh, I got chills when that happened.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
I got
for
them just
sure.
now.
That is
Another of my favorites was, so this one is very interesting. So the location was called Broken Bow Asylum, but it was not an asylum. It was like a haunted house attraction. And so they just gave it that name, but the
Right.
location was haunted. Well, I'm standing next to the nurses station that when it was in operation, and all of a suddenly the pathway it was dark, it's at night, but it's like all the light starts disappearing and it becomes very black. And so I'm frozen in spot because I'm like, okay, what's happening here? What do I need to do? And I know I'm okay, but still, it's like in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, here are my 2 exit points. If I really need to run, I got to go this way. And all of a suddenly, this blue, like fireworks sparkler light starts coming towards me.
Whoa.
And I'm like, okay, this is new. This is interesting. And it gets to the point to where it's like right in front of me. And a friend leans over that's a medium psychic, and he goes, Michael, there's a spirit right in front of you. And I'll clean up what I say
you
because I
say
don't know.
no S, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
I was like, oh, I know. And so I'm standing there, and it's like I feel myself telepathically going, I'm not afraid of you. You can stand here in front of me all you want. I'm not moving until you back down and make your intentions known. And all of a suddenly it like disappeared. And I'm wearing a body cam. So I'm thinking this will be so great that it's on my body cam. Well, the spirit is on this side. The body cam's filming over here.
Oops.
So didn't get
Oh
it.
God.
Darn.
But here's the interesting thing. I then get the feeling of being drawn to a back room. So I turn and I go to that room, and the body cam records in 5-minute increments. And I point this out, and I'll explain why I point that out in a moment. But
Okay.
so I turn the corner, I go in this room, and there's this white mass in front of me, like milky white cream, just floating in air, kind of. It's like you could reach out and it's like Play-Doh or clay. You could make it into whatever you wanted. And I'm like, this is really interesting. What
Yeah.
what can I help you with? And it started coming towards me and then disappeared. So I go back around the corner and I go out in the hallway and everyone's getting ready to leave to take a break outside. And so I'm like, all right, let's go take a break after what just happened. Sorry. I get home and I start to review the footage. after that experience with the blue sparkle, you know how I said it records in 5-minute increments?
Yeah.
Yes.
It recorded 23 seconds.
Huh.
It stops recording, and the second I leave that room back into the hallway, it starts recording again.
So it turned it off somehow.
Not only did it turn it off, but when I went to use it and charge it up, I charged it up and I went to use it on my next investigation, it was dead.
It
They
drained it.
totally fried the body cam.
Oh,
It
wow.
it no longer, I had to have it plugged in to use it. And the battery pack gets really hot in the pocket. The body cam gets really hot. So I was like, I just got to replace this.
Yeah, it's got ruined.
Oh my God, that's man, that seems to be like one of the hallmarks of when you have a
It,
real experience. When you have a
Yeah.
real
yeah.
experience.
Well, and
Electromagnetic dampening.
I know a couple of officers that paranormal investigate. And so I asked them, I said, so you guys are really familiar with body cams? And they go, well, yeah. I said, have you ever had one turn itself off and start itself up? And they said, no, that's impossible. It can't operate that way. It doesn't turn itself off and on when it feels like it. It's either on or off. And when I told them the story, how it recorded 23 seconds, and they go, that's impossible. If it's set to record 5 minutes, it records 5 minutes.
Not today.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, you have believers here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
My
That's
Yeah.
Michael, we're almost at the end, but I wanted to ask if you had any a final word you'd like to leave the audience with tonight.
Ooh, a final word.
Well, not
Let's see.
final.
or promotions or whatever you like to say.
I would say the best way to go through life and the key to life, in my opinion and my experience, is if you can go through every day finding the joy and finding the love and finding the positives no matter what happens, then you've truly lived a great moment. And that's what life is. It's just a series of moments. You don't need to plan really for the future, because there's a reason why they say the future isn't written. And as we learn, time runs in a loop, not a straight line. So, with everything happening at the same time, I feel like that relieves a lot of stress and makes life easier, knowing whatever I'm doing now, as long as I can go to sleep happy, wake up happy, go through the day and trust whatever happens is meant to happen, and again go to sleep happy, I've lived a perfect moment and the future is going to be bright. So don't lose hope over, having a bad day or, being hurt about something. Just give yourself time to heal and find the joy of why it happened and what you've gained from it.
Very
Thank you.
nice, very good words of wisdom.
Very.
I don't think enough people think or feel that way. I think you're right. Too many people are just so goal driven that they have to do this to be happy. They have to achieve this to be happy.
And what is it? I
Right.
think it's a Japanese saying, the future doesn't exist.
In a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and like Steven says, there are people who sit there and say, well, I didn't accomplish this today, so, I failed the day. I didn't
Yes.
get this done. And people don't stop and think, well, I didn't get it done, but look at all the other stuff I got done.
Yeah, I did
And I can
this
do
and
it
that.
tomorrow.
Just
And
just like even like just going to the market, just being really nice to the checker and just like asking how they're doing, and just it's things like that. When I see so many people at the market that are just so grumpy, it's just just a smile or just being happy and giving
Yeah.
them some joy, simple things like that. You know, I think it really goes a long way. I totally agree with you.
Now, Michael, do you have anything you'd like to plug, like a shameless promotional
Of your
thing?
show, or whatever.
Oh, I'll happily shamelessly plug my shows.
Yeah. What's up
So,
lately for you?
so Tuesday nights, I have The Energy That Surrounds Us. It's available on YouTube, Rumble, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And that is my delving into the world of the paranormal and all the aspects of what I feel like are fringe paranormal topics, such as mediumship or aura photography, or just different aspects that people normally don't think about, because to me paranormal is anything that's unexplained.
Yeah,
So
it's basically
I'm
the
like,
definition.
right, so I'm like, I just open the doors to that, and if I can get a guest on a topic, great.
And where can
Then
people listen? How can people listen?
they
One more time.
can go to Rumble, and believe the channel is Tetsu Podcast Show. I like acronyms. They're easier to write.
So
And
TETSU.
TETSU, yes.
Okay.
Tetsu.
On Rumble,
And
everyone.
on Rumble, and it's The Energy That Surrounds Us on YouTube. And then on Wednesdays is the show you guys were a part of last week, and that is my series, Writing Through the Unknown, which is my journey into esoteric topics, which means topics that are not covered in mainstream. So, like, I can talk about giants, stargates, neural music, binaural music, just topics that people don't really, I think about and what impacts they have. And we talk about the secret space program, some
And is that
program
also on Rumble?
No,
that is available on Rumble, and that channel is called Writing Through the Unknown.
Riding through
Also
the
on
unknown.
YouTube, Writing Through the Unknown, LinkedIn, and the LinkedIn is my profile, and I just started using it, so I don't have it memorized. But I also have then on Thursdays, twice a month or 3 times a month, I get together with Kel Ridley, who recently got married, so her name is now Kel Atkinson, and Matt Atkinson. They're in the UK, and we do paranormal show called Paranormal Versus, and that is available on Rumble, on Paranormal Versus podcast, YouTube channel Paranormal Versus, and that show is our delving into topics of the paranormal, and I bring the US side of investigation to it and how we would approach and look at it. They bring the UK's. So that's really why we call it Paranormal Versus, is we sometimes, if we can, we compare how the UK and US investigate it, or historically, what they're going through, and like if we have that. So it's really a fun show, and so I have a lot of fun. And I actually am happy to announce I have recently done 2 appearances on another show a friend of mine has. Her name is Emily Men's House, and she does a show called The Beast System. So on that, we look into conspiracy topics, and we look into like my first appearance on there was a 7-hour episode covering the election coverage. So we were like not calling it until everybody else called it. So it ended up being 7 hours, but
That's a marathon.
it was. And so it's a lot of fun sharing different ideas. Last night, my second appearance, we did a deep dive into the JFK assassination and our different ways of looking at what happened, why is this still such a hot topic, and the new information that's come out, and just looking at it through the eyes of going and saying, does this narrative make sense? If not, why?
Right.
And we back up our sentences and our statements and our theories. And our goal isn't out there to prove one way or another what happened. It's just to help people open their eyes and their minds to going, not everything we're told and see is what we think we see.
Right.
So use your minds, use your
Common
thinking
sense,
skills.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you so much for being
Yes,
on our show
thank you
tonight.
very much.
What a fantastic guest you've been.
Yeah.